Um,
Sorry about that.
and now okay. Yeah, now that territory is it started in Gaza. It started in Gaza. Of course, we all know what's been going on in Gaza. You know how there's been an ethnic cleansing going on in even amongst the Israelis, how that bled over into Lebanon, and even in Lebanon, as you've seen the war between Hezbollah and the IDF. I call it the Idumea of defense forces. I don't call it Israeli or Israel defense forces. I
Hmm.
call them by their true nature, Idumeans. Um, but yeah, it's amazing to see how the Most High is cleansing this area of the people who have been inhabiting this land for centuries now, since the invasion of the Caliphate, the Islam, the Arab Springs and, Ottoman Empire, so forth and so forth, moving up until today, with the invasion of Islam and how Islam conquered this area. But now what we seeing is the tables is turning, and it's just amazing how the Most High is cleansing this area. And our people, we don't even have to lift a sword. We don't have to lift a finger, the Most High is doing it. Um, that's just my perspective from what's going on in the land now. And yeah, it's an ethnic cleansing, and the Most High is in the process of, cleansing that land, and we're bringing the rightful owners back to its ownership.
Well, there's a lot of
Okay.
talk. There's a lot of talking, especially in Hebrew Israelite communities, that that area isn't our land, and there are a lot of people saying, "Oh, well,
Hmm.
America's our land." And one that seems more credible to me is that
Hmm.
Africa is our land, and they just like
Hmm.
switched it over on the map, as it were. Um, so,
Hmm.
what would you say, like, to sort of charges that that area that is, Israel and the Greater Israel, that isn't our land?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, I've heard that perspective before, and I understand it. I understand why people come from. Well, I don't necessarily understand the American perspective, but I do understand the perspective of the interior of Africa or South Africa. Um, but one thing I suggest is to people is just to do a field research. Do field research. Go to these places. I know when I was in the land of Israel, like I said, I've heard that perspective before, and the only thing that I was left with the conclusion was is just to see for myself and use the Book of Joshua as a guide. The Book of Joshua gives us the layouts of the land, and it gives us the bodies of water that lines up with the land. So, just to give you a quick little story about myself, when I was in the land of Israel, I traveled throughout the land and I looked at the tribal landmarks, and when the two tribes that stood out that kind of substantiated that that was the land for me was the tribe of Yehuda, or commonly called Judah, and the tribe of Benjamin, commonly called Benjamin, and how those two borders meet at one threshing point. And the threshing point is the where the Dead Sea and the Jordan River meet. So me and a few other guys, because I had witnesses with me, so I took witnesses and we traveled up Route 90 going alongside the Dead Sea all the way up until we got to the where in the book of, I think it's Jeremiah chapter 18, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not Jeremiah, Joshua chapter 18, where it says that is the point where the two tribes, Benjamin and Yehuda, meet. The Dead Sea being the most northern part of where the Dead Sea ends and the Jordan River begins is the most northernest border of Judah. And that same threshing point is where the southern tip of where Benjamin ends. So though they meet there, so we traveled up Route 90 all the way up until the Dead Sea, and then when we got to the end of the Dead Sea where the Jordan River flows in, that's where we seen the Jordan River. So upon further research, we traveled on Route 1, which is going west. And when you get about 30 kilometers west, then you see the city of Jerusalem there. So when you look at the book again, to substantiate this in the book of Joshua, uh, the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Judah share Jerusalem, with the northern Jerusalem being the inheritance of Benjamin, and the southern part of Jerusalem being the inheritance of Judah. And there it was. Um, Also, towards the west, you have the Mediterranean Sea. Also the layout of the land, it says in the book that the Jerusalem is a place full of mountains, and the whole city is built on mountains. So it was just, these points substantiated for me. Also being here in the land of Egypt, and people want to um, some people have the perspective that this area is not part of Africa, but when history tells, before the Suez Canal, which was excavated by man, separated the land of Egypt and the land of Israel, the Negev desert, this was all connected. So technically the land of Israel is Northeast Africa, the tip of Northeast Africa. When you go towards Syria on the other side of Jordan, that's where you get to what they call West Asia.
Right.
So it all connects. So yeah,
Well,
that's just my perspective. You start field research.
no, the other thing, with Africa, in Africa, you've got
Mhm.
pockets of Judah. Yeah, so Sudan, Sauda, yeah, it means people of Judah, and you've got I think, what was it? It was on old maps. It was the Kingdom of Judah
Yeah,
next to Benin,
yeah, that's it.
which is Benjamin. Yeah,
It's,
That's
so they got, yeah, they got the Negro land,
Negro land.
There you
Yeah,
Kingdom
go.
of
There you
Judah.
go. Absolutely.
indeed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
And I was just going to add
I'm
that
sorry.
part of my Sabbath, right? We go through this little thing of we read, in this case we read Judges, right? And so we listened to the story of Samson and Delilah, and then when we watched the Hollywood movie of Samson and Delilah, to just to compare what they were saying about what the Bible's. Yeah, silly, but we just went through that. But something I noticed was that there were lions in the land. So there were lions because Samson wrestled with a lion. So there aren't very
Yeah,
many lions in Israel, that Israel area. Plenty of lions in Africa, though. Yeah, that's so,
Absolutely.
you've got to also understand that we're
but,
dealing with very sneaky people who, over a century could have literally just changed landmarks and stuff to alter the
but you,
land.
but you remember when they wanted to send the Ashkenazis back to the land, they wanted to use Africa. The first point was Africa, was it
Kenya or
Kenya or
Uganda or
somewhere
something
else?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to use that part, then they settled on where it is now.
Yeah.
I want to talk.
So
I want to make. It was a couple points you made allegedly, Elder Dave. I want to touch on. Well, first I want to touch on the first point about the land as far as the names of certain areas, like the tribe, the Kingdom of Judah. If you do research about the Bantu people, okay, the Bantu people. These are the people who migrated from northeastern Africa into the different coasts of the West Africa. Also, they traveled from the Levant. You had also the children of Israel who came from Yemen, who traveled and crossed over to the Red Sea into what they call Ethiopia today, or Eritrea. These are your Falashas, the people who called themselves Ethiopian Israelites or Beta Israel. Also, there traveled some certain tribes of Bantu people into southern Sudan, all throughout Sudan as well. Also, Rwanda. All right, you got the people called the Tutsi people, also the Hutus. Okay, so when you go, Henry made an interesting point. Negro land, which is in the Niger Congo area. These are Bantu people. These are people who took our heritage, and because African heritage and African culture was a passed down through oral traditions. So they kept those traditions, and even in coasts of Western Africa now, people who call themselves the Igbos, the Ashan people, people who call themselves Yorubas, there's hundreds of thousands of different Bantu tribes, all linked to the children of Israel, scattered throughout the coasts of Africa. So they took on the names of these of their heritage, and they just named these places after their heritage. So that's point one. Now you mentioned another point about the lions, and that's really key. So when you look up what they call the Asiatic lions, you have different species of lions. You have the African lion, which dominates the lion species, the most biggest. But you also have the Asiatic lions. Also, to this day, you have what they call mountain lions all throughout Israel. So you have different forms of lions. You have the Asiatic lions, which range from central and northern Israel all the way down to the Negev, going into the Saudi Peninsula. Now, currently today, they've been killed off for the most part, and some of them have migrated over into the Indian area. Okay, so yeah, you had Asiatic, what they call Asiatic lions, which are a little bit smaller than your African lions. Also, you got to think about in the book, the land of Israel deals with three different types of climates. In the northern area, when you go all the way up into the borders of Syria, what they call the Golan Heights, it snows. And when you look at David and the mighty men, it tells you on accounts where some of his mighty men, I forget, he was one of the three, he was one of the three heads of David's captains, and he killed, a lion in the snow. I think his name was Benaiah. So you have the three different climates in the land of Israel. Being there, I seen, you have three different, types of atmospheres. You have some areas that look like Miami, you have some land areas that look like Canada, you know. So yeah, like I said, it's like I said, yeah, I'm not here to, discredit anyone's perspectives, but at the end of the day, the Most High will reveal all things. But I just ask people to travel, go get boots on the ground work, and look at these things for yourself. So
I
that's my take on that.
Well, interestingly, you said about the Bantu people. I found out that the word Bantu was actually two words, Abba and Tu. Right, so Paleo Hebrew means people of the Father. So
Mm,
that's a confirmation there. And I kind of agree with you that well, I know you weren't disparaging anybody's view, but the view that America is the land, I can't go with that because Egypt seems to be a pivotal point. Wherever the land is, it's within walking distance of Egypt, and
mhm,
I can't believe that they would have invented a place where you are right now and called that Egypt to throw us off. Um,
mhm,
I do know that the map in antiquity, what we call north was south, and what south is north. So there could be a bit of sort of jiggery pokery there to confuse people. But yeah, there are people making sort of elaborate cases for America being land. But since there's a bulk of our people in that land at the moment, it would mean that the second Exodus is meaningless because where are the people in America going to Exodus to? Are they going to
mhm.
move from Carolina to Texas or something? No, so not
Yeah, I
much
don't
of an
understand. Yeah.
Exodus.
Absolutely.
What
It
do
was
you
one key
think?
point too. I'm sorry, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah. What do you think after when the invasion of Israel by the Romans? Do you think that a lot of people went to the Americas, and then
Me
that's where
personally?
they went from there? What do you think?
No, I would have to go with the perspective that most of our people traveled into the interior or the Central Africa over into the Niger Congo area. Um, that's my take on that. There's actually of course, I don't have the information with me at the moment, but there's actual trails that substantiates, our people fleeing from the land of Israel, and even going all the way back dating to the Assyrians, when the Assyrians invaded the land in the 8th century. Some of them went into, the Sahara, sub-Saharan area. And then, they settled there before the Arab invasion, and then they traveled and pushed further west into the western
Because
coast of Africa.
yeah, But you remember because in Europe we was there, Spain and England. Like Dave knows all this information better than me. We was there already, so we must have left Israel when we got chased out and went to Europe and went to the Americas.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
this is over a course of thousands of years of migrations, you know, been plenty of different migrations. You
Well,
know, a lot of people don't understand, like I said, you know, even when you're talking about the Levant, you know, going into the Nile Valley, you know, we took that route, but some of it went back into Egypt. You know, they went back into literal Egypt, you know, fleeing from persecution, even during the days of when the Babylonians fell. Remember, a lot of our people who was told not to go there at the time, they went there anyway, you know, and a lot of them went from there and they were trying to escape the Babylonian persecution, but Egypt got taken over by Babylon as well. So it was like, you know, running from a bear to be met by a snake, you know, and the Most High tried to warn them, you know, and he told them that they would have safe haven in the land. That's why he told them, don't go there. And they disobeyed his word,
mhm.
you know. So a lot of them fled going through Sudan. That's also how the philosophers got into Ethiopia, you know, through Egypt, you know, traveling through the Nile Valley. So, yeah, you know, historical, you know, it's a lot of historical evidence out there that supports that our people traveled into the interiors of Africa, you know, and I don't see any, except for the transatlantic slave trade, on how we got to the Americas. So I'm finding it hard to, you know, kind of agree with that perspective that America is our land.
Yeah, well,
I understand what you're saying, Sunday.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Because me or you, Dave?
No, no, you, Henry.
Yeah. No, because I saw some videos on like the slave trade when people getting brought from Africa to around the world, but it would have took thousands of ships. As I saw the videos and they were saying it would have took thousands of years. But we was already in Europe, as Dave knows, and
Yeah.
we must have been in the all in the Americas already.
Well, I'll take this because yeah, I've done a lot of research on the European side of it. That during the Babylonian captivity, yeah, there were thousands of the tribe of Judah and the house of David were taken over to Spain. Okay, because the king of Spain asked for, you know, the royal house of you know, Judah, and so thousands of you know, David's descendants went to Spain, and then it happened again at 70 AD. All the top, they're called exilarchs, you know, the oligarchy in exile essentially. So Spain and Portugal is where, or Spain mostly, was where the royal house of David was. Okay, and that tribe over there swelled massively, became a nation unto itself, and they were persecuted from Spain to Portugal, and then, you know, into Africa. But even before they got there, there are people called the Iba, which is the same word as Ibu and Ivri and Evre and Yabia, all the words that mean Hebrew, just different dialects. Okay, so the Iba ended up in Spain and Portugal, where they named that place the Iberian Peninsula. And some went on to found another country, which was called Hibernia, again, and named it after themselves, which is Ireland. And then some went on from there and went yeah, they founded another country. The only word that survives is Hebrides. So you can show the progression through the names of the places, right? So to answer your question about it would have taken thousands of ships from Africa, well, it did over hundreds of years, because it wasn't just Africa. The slaves went from the United Kingdom, the British Isles, through to you know, the Caribbean and the Americas, and there were people from our people from the whole of Europe who were being sort of shipped, over hundreds of years. So it wasn't just Africans, so-called Africans. It was essentially a whole nation from various parts of Europe, and Africa taken over to America in lots of different trips that were thousands of ships all told. Yeah. The story they tell is only ships from Africa went to America. No, it wasn't.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Another key point too, and how, according to my historical analysis, how we got into different coasts of Europe. When you go into the book of Joel, commonly called Joel, chapter 3, it talks about the surrounding areas, and the surrounding nations who were all in this conspiracy to, it was a slave trade during that time. I forget the century. I want to think it was. I'm trying to think timeline. But one of the nations that yet the Most High was judging was the land of Tyre. And Tyre is what you call is now Lebanon today. Well, there was a slave trade during that area as well. When you go to Ezekiel's chapter 27, 28, and around that area, the Most High is also judging the coast of Lebanon and how they sold us into the aggressions, during those times, So we were sold over into the Greeks to work as cunning men or artificers and different types of manual labor. So yeah, it was even during those times too. I think this was uh post-Babylonian. I don't have all the facts with me right now, but yeah, even in the book, it describes us being sold to the aggression. So those European countries as well who we were sold to, even in ancient times.
Right. Well, I was kind of covering the past now, but to bring it sort of more into the present, you started talking about what's going on in Syria, David. As I mentioned to you,
Yeah.
we here in the UK. Well, not that I'm in the UK, but in the UK, we don't get any news from Syria. It's now old news. So now we're hearing about what's going on in Israel. So perhaps you can sort of fill us in what's going on over there.
Absolutely. So like I was mentioning before, as you know, the Assad regime collapsed, which was his fault because a lot of mismanagement on his part, when it comes to his inner circle. He was dealing with a lot of corrupt generals, a lot of corrupt military officers, who was even infiltrated by Mossad, the Israeli secret intelligence agencies. Um, he was on his last leg, and Russia and Iran were doing their best to advise him, to strengthen up his military and to get rid of certain people who they deemed were a liability to the existence of the Syrian regime. But he failed, and he refused to take good advice. So eventually, with Turkey and aligned with the United States and Israel, Turkey seems to be this nation that they are anti-Israel, but in actuality, they are not. They actually in cahoots. They work with Israel. Um, they are in business with Israel because, and I hate calling them Israel. I rather call them Idumea, but for the sake of our audience, so they can understand what we're talking about, I just mention them as their Israel. But Turkey is well in partnership with Israel because they are still shipping natural gas. Those are the pipelines going down there to Syria to Israel to fund and to help them in the war in Gaza. Even though I forget how you pronounce his name, the president of Turkey,
Erdogan.
Erdogan, something like
Erdogan.
that.
Erdogan.
Erdogan, thank you. I appreciate that. Erdogan, thank you. Erdogan he'll get on national TV and say, we are against Israel this, we're against Israel that, but nationality, he's in alliance with them. But anyway, they played a part in with this new paramilitary group called the HTS, which is head by I think his name is Mahmoud or Mohammed Galani. And they was able to take over Syria, running through it. Took over Syria in a week, which was really really, really interesting. Because the Syrian government, starting in 2011, they was able to fight off the Americas, they was able to fight off Israel, fight off ISIS and all these different terrorist groups, but all of a sudden now, within a week or two, the whole regime collapsed. So there's still some questions going on there, whether this was an inside job, whether they are baiting these uh these paramilitary groups and these rebel groups in to set up a final blow to set them up. We don't know, but it was highly strange. But anyway, Elder Lee,
Yeah,
shalom, shalom.
greetings, brother.
Peace and God bless.
God
Peace,
bless.
peace, peace,
God bless
indeed.
you.
Just
Indeed.
one
So yeah,
more question kind of for you. How do you see this in terms of shall we say prophecy and our role in that area?
absolutely. Thank you for asking once again, Elder Dave. So yes, when you go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 48, it gives you the land, the layout, and the land of Israel will be expanded. Right now, it reaches up into the so-called Golan Heights, which is southern Syria, but it will extend all the way up into Hamath, which is now eventually called Hamath, all the way up into Damascus and then Lebanon. All that territory will be given into the tribe of Dan, and that would be the most northern part of the land of Israel. So starting in Gaza, all right, starting in Gaza over into the West Bank, and then eventually, northern Israel, the Golan Heights, Lebanon, all those areas, as you can see, the Most High is doing an ethnic cleansing the people out of that land. And now Syria, so the situation in Syria now, the descendants of Esau who call themselves Israelis, I like to call them the IDF, Idumean Defense Forces. They are now confiscating land up all the way up into Hama, Syria. So prophetically, this is the Most High cleansing out that land for the people, his people to return. Now, this is going to not going to be done in a day. It's not going to be done in a week, not going to be done in a year. But the process has begun where the Most High is now ethnic cleansing that land and giving it back to its rightful ownership, which is the children of Israel. And the Most High is, like it talks about in Ezekiel chapter 38, dealing with the last battle. But the Most High is using the same type of war tactic. He's a man, he's the power of war, Yah of hosts. And his tactic is divide and conquer. Actually, the descendants of Esau took his tactic and divided and conquered the world. But that's Yah's tactic. That's his way of destroying his enemies. You'll see this in the book of Kings with Jehoshaphat. When I think like three nations, Ammon, Edom, and Moab, all went out against Jehoshaphat, this really great big army. And what did he do? He turned every man's sword against his brother. And that's exactly what he said he was going to do in Ezekiel chapter 38 during the last battle. And it's what he's doing now, coming all the way up until today. This whole area will be cleansed out, because after this situation in Gaza, this is my mind. Okay. This is just my perspective and what I see. I look at pattern recognitions. So you have an internal war going on in the land of Israel between the so-called Palestinians, who are remnants of the Ottoman Empire, and the invaders of the Caliphate, dating all the way back into the 6th and 7th century CE AD, with the invasion of Islam. You see they having internal problems, fighting against each other. They're canceling each other out. You see the situation with Hezbollah, Lebanon. You see the situation with Syria, Iran, all these Arab nations, they're canceling each other out, and I feel, as I see, as pattern recognition shows, even after this war, you will have what they call the Arab war between the Sunnis and the Shias. And then after that's cleansed out, like I said, you'll have different alliances in that area. And the Most High will continue to have all these nations fight and destroy and self-destruct. So at the moment, that's what I see prophetic wise. He's cleansing out Syria. He's cleansing out Lebanon, southern Lebanon. As you see, dating back a few months ago, where the IDF was bombing Beirut to pieces, killing civilians, and this ceasefire, what they have going on in Gaza, it will not stand. It will continue. All right, and you'll have that going on. You'll have the West Bank being cleared out. So yeah, the Most High is fulfilling Ezekiel chapter 47 to 48 right before our eyes, and that's what I see in this area.
All right. Well, thanks, Dorit. That's Very insightful, I think. Welcome, Brother Lee. How are you doing? You're muted.
You on mute, Lee?
Peace and y'all blessed brothers. It's been quite a while since we sat down and broke bread. How's everyone doing?
Well, we're all doing
All is
good.
well. All is well.
The two Brits here, we're in the Caribbean essentially, both of us. So we're
Yeah.
enjoying life at the moment.
Yeah, so I've heard. Brother Hank told me.
Yeah. So I'd
Yeah.
really like to get your perspective, Lee, on what's going on in the States. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on there at the moment, and
Yeah.
I'd like to get your perspective on it, and as far as our role and prophecy is concerned.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on here. I mean, I'm certain you guys have been. Everyone is well aware of the wildfires out in California. Many of the job layoffs. Certainly, the rise of inflation, food cost, fuel cost, and certainly the cost of living, i.e., there've been some major increase in taxes as far as for the homeowners. There've been major increases in rent, in the cost of rent, just overall cost of living, and people's wages have not been increased to keep up with inflation. So many people are struggling and have to work at sometimes two, maybe three jobs by which to make ends meet. So it's tough in that regard pertaining to just day-to-day living. There have been some layoffs as well, and that's also increasing the difficulty here. Uh, and many people are behind on their car notes. They're behind on their mortgages. We're seeing an increase and a spike in 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 foreclosures of homes. So when you start seeing these types of things, you can expect alcoholism, uh, drug abuse, suicides, divorce rates. All these things will increase with these hardships, along with theft and crime. So if this continue to head down the road that it's headed, which we're certain that it will, things will only get tougher, and people are going to start resorting to all types of unscrupulous behavior here. So not just here, this is the same thing that we're seeing taking place in all parts of the earth. So it's imperative that the children of Israel and the stranger that is of a contrite spirit hold on and hold steadfast to the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and don't allow tough times to cause them to turn to things that's nefarious and unrighteous by which to quote unquote make it.
Well, do you think though that because of our history, um, these changes aren't going to affect us as much as other people?
Dave, you're frozen.
Oh, I'm frozen. Oh,
No, you're good now. You're good now. I think I know I know where you're headed with this. The history, because of our history, we're much more adapt
Yeah,
or
because we had nothing.
conditioned for hardship.
Yeah, we had nothing, and they kept everything for us. They kept our lives hard. So perhaps we haven't been softened as much, and accustomed to an easy life as perhaps other nations have. So that when this is starting to bite, it's not biting us as hard.
Yeah, well, the thing is I would agree with that to an extent to where we have endured hardship that most nations are just not accustomed to. And we have endured this hardship in all the many nations where we dwell. So we're acclimatized for tough times, so to speak. However, when I would state it this way: when the Most High takes away the staple of bread, when He takes away the bread from our oppressors, and He no longer has crumbs to throw to us, then that's where the problem is going to begin. See, right now, our oppressors, He still has a loaf of bread, and He's able to throw us some crumbs every now and then. Now, the situation changes drastically when He has nothing by which to give us. And at that point, we can no longer turn to Him for anything, for a job, for health care, for any type of provisions. And this is the point where we're going to have to trust in the Most High. So once again, I can just reemphasize to the people that tough times have been here. We have some tough times here right now. Tougher times are ahead. And as it gets tough, we've got to remember where our strength is and to lean on that. Because I'm thinking it's going to get to the point to where the currencies and the systems that we're accustomed to, you know, to feeding us, so to speak, maybe the welfare system, the governmental system, providing us with jobs, food, employment, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. If these things go by the way of the wayside, uh, our people find ourselves in dire straits as well, probably more so than our enemies. So we need to be very mindful of these things. Uh, and I can see where if there begins to be a collapse in that regard, where many of our people, if they don't do it altogether, may consider abandoning an abandonment of righteousness altogether in order to try to survive, so to speak. And our goal is not to, my goal is to remind people not to do that. Though times may be difficult, to turn to the Most High and let Him be their strength and shield in those times.
Well, the Most High
have a
says,
question.
oh, sorry, I'll just quickly say this. The
Yeah.
Most High says over and over again, do not fear. Do not fear, right? Plenty of times. I can't remember how many times, lots of times. The way I see it is that, the Most High can make anything happen, and He does all the time. He seems to work in the uncertainty. Yeah. If you trust in the Most High and think, I really need this, I really need that, right? You turn around and there it is, right? There's no explanation how it got there, but there it is. Yeah. So yes, we do have to trust in the Most High because as far as He's concerned, anything and everything is possible. So yeah, I go along with you. Sorry to cut you, Daweed. Go ahead.
Oh no, no problem, no problem. That was good. That was a good, interesting take on that. I appreciate you for that. I just want to ask Elder Lee because he is boots on the ground there in the United States. How did you? I hope I'm not getting ahead. I hope you wasn't asking. You want to answer this question. This was going to be a topic of discussion, but I wanted to know. I'm interested to know what are your perspectives of this new regime coming in between Donald Trump and the transition between him and his administration. What changes do you see going on in the United States once he becomes into office tomorrow?
Well, yeah, tomorrow the 21st already. My computer is showing the
Oh,
19th.
20th,
I don't think
yeah.
I think he comes on the 21st, I believe. Well, there's great excitement uh, in the midst of his followers for him to take this position. I know the Israelis are certainly excited to see him come to power. Uh, and there's many people that voted for him and many people that did not vote for him. Uh, but I would like to remind everyone that has voted, that has participated in that, what I would call a charade, uh, that this man is there or getting ready to take this office because it's the Most High will for this to happen. For the Most High put in place, He raises up leaders and He brings them down. It's Him that does this. So Trump is going into office because that's the Most High's choice. Uh, and I think people are to be mindful of that. What he does once he gets there is no telling. I consider him to be a bull in the china shop. So as we look towards the situation that's going on in Gaza, uh, no one knows where he will lean. I'm thinking that that's the type of man when it comes to the situation in Gaza as well as the situation in Ukraine. He may pull some moves that's totally that can be a big surprise to everyone. Uh, like I said, once again, he's the bull in the china shop. Uh, whether he listens to reason or not, I don't know. But I do feel as though things here are too far gone and he can't save it. Everyone is looking to him to bring back jobs and to do this and to do that, to pretty much be the savior of this place. And I don't think that he can. I think he is like the rest of them. His goal is to protect his money, protect his family, and do the best that he can for him and himself and his people. Uh, as far as it regards to the nation as a whole, I don't think that's where his interest lies. I think it's pretty much his interest is self-serving, like most of them. So we will certainly see where this goes. He's full of bravado. So many of the military conflicts that we do see that we have worldwide, it may just escalate with him in that office. But we shall see.
I just what I want to weigh in on Donald Trump. Now I think we've got two things going on here. We've got prophecy from the Most High, and we've got a playbook from the other side, as it were. Okay, so that equates to the Old Testament and New Testament, right? So from the playbook side, there's something called predictive programming. Okay, so where they tell you over and over again of something that's coming, so that when it gets here, you're not too shocked and surprised about it. So the predictive programming for Trump was a book or a couple of books written over 100 years ago. One was called the Marvelous Adventures of Little Baron Trump, right? Which Baron Trump is Trump's son, and in this book, this boy Baron Trump goes on adventures at the behest of somebody called the Don. Coincidence, right? But the other book written by the author of that one was called The Last President. I believe that Donald Trump is the last president of the United States. And yes, I agree with you, Brother Lee, that he's not going to save America. He's going to preside over the end of America, right? And I believe
You're frozen for just a second, brother. There you go.
Okay.
You're back.
I believe he's going to preside over the end of America, and essentially the Exodus, the second Exodus, is going to have to happen in his days, in his tenure, as it were.
The next 4 years.
In the next 4 years. I'll just add one
I'll
more.
tell you what's interesting.
Sorry,
go ahead, brother Dave. Go
ahead. There was a coin that the Jewish people minted when Donald Trump first got in. It was a coin that had Donald Trump with King Cyrus the Great, and they equated Donald Trump with King Cyrus the Great. Well, what did King Cyrus the Great do? He was the one who let the Israelites leave from Babylon. So the Ish people have already equated Donald Trump to be the new King Cyrus. So, as I said, I think everything that I've looked at, all the research I've done points to this time, this 2025 to 2030 era as the end of the 6,000 years, the 6 days of work, which precedes the 1,000 years of rest and relaxation, as it were. I know it might not be agreeable to everyone, but that's the way I see it. And I think Donald Trump, even though he was engineered into place by the system, so that's the playbook. The Most High doesn't care how it happens, right? He's just saying this is going to happen. There will be another King Cyrus the Great to let the people go, as it were.
Yeah, I think the quote unquote Jewish people that have said that, when they're saying that, that's pretty much they're putting themselves in they're shoehorning themselves as those people. Now, there's many things transpiring within that land, and anyone that has the ability to read with any manner of comprehension certainly knows that when you read the prophecy as it pertains to Israel going back into that land, Israel, the people, we can see clearly where those people don't match any of those prophecies. Now, with all the bombs being dropped and everything that's being said, no one, and I mean absolutely no one, is touching the biblical facts that these are not those people. No one is touching that. They're touching everything. They're speaking of, the oppression of South Africa and this oppression and that oppression, et cetera, et cetera. They are not covering the fact of at all what has been done to us. I mean, and if it is mentioned, it's mentioned in passing. And I'm thinking it's just a matter of time to where it becomes so dire that at some point, even the people that's in that land is going to start discussing and making mention of who's in that land. And exactly what's being done and what the prophecy states pertaining to those that the land was promised to. So right now, all the major news outlets and pundits, they're touching on everything. They're trying to touch on morality. They're trying to touch on, oh, it's a genocide, this and that, it's ethnic cleansing, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not touching the people that the greatest genocide has been happened, has happened to these people, and in most cases still currently being done in many nations. So they're not touching that aspect of it. They're dancing around that thing a lot. I'm thinking it's just a matter of time before that comes to the forefront. And everyone is forced to look biblically at what has been prophesied pertaining to these people and to really come to the realization that we are the house of Israel. I'm thinking that's not been mainstream yet, but I'm thinking we're headed in that direction.
That's a really interesting take, Elder Lee. I want to add to that. I was talking about before you got on to the call. I was explaining to Elder Dave and Henry about prophetically what the Most High is doing in this area, and but I didn't get a chance to touch on the Israelis and their main goal. What their main goal is, to try to establish the vision of filling those shoes of being us. And this is why everything is truly the underlying factor. This is why everything you see going on in the land in this area is going on with starting in Gaza. You have a far right wing government who has been aiding and abetting Benjamin Netanyahu and is really the determining factor of his decision making. What their true goal is to ethnically cleanse Gaza in the West Bank so they can build these settlements, even in the Golan Heights. They're trying to fulfill this role of completely establishing the land of Israel, all right, as their own. They don't want no two-state solution. They want to cleanse the Gazans out, whether it be they kill them all, push them into Egypt, push them up into Jordan, etc. And their main mission is to build the third and last temple on top of Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. That is their main goal. All right, that's the overall objective of these Israelis is to completely and full have full control over the land to establish the vision of being the children of Israel. That's why you see everything going on. That's why the moment Bashir Assad fell, it wasn't even a day, and they was already had their army tanks up and pushing up into the Golan Heights, going up into Syria, because they're trying to extend this border. And this mission is called the fulfillment of a greater Israel. That's why they're doing all this. But if you can see deeper beneath the surface, this is the Most High doing this for the rightful owners to return, but they're trying to fulfill those roles. They're trying to fill in those shoes. That's why they're in Syria. That's why they're in Gaza. That's why they're trying to push Hezbollah above the Atani River in Lebanon. This is the main objective of these Israeli people, is to establish a greater Israel to fulfill the prophecy of being the true children of Israel, which will not be established.
Well, I'll put it to you like this also. I mean, that's a good point. I've always said for many years on my channel that it's all going to begin at the Golan Heights. Them being pushed out of there is going to be the beginning of the grand scheme of all things pertaining to these prophecies. So I keep my eyes on the Golan. I don't know why. It's always been that way for me in my mind, that the Golan Heights will be the pinnacle of this. Once again, when these things they're trying to build a third temple, we know that's not going to happen. Uh, but militarily, they're doing all that they're doing as far as cleansing the place. At some point, everyone is going to have to come back biblically to this book because we have to keep in mind that their claim to fame is they're doing what they're doing based on biblical writings and biblical prophecies. So at some point, people are going to have to ask themselves, and people are going to say and ask these Israelis, okay, if what you're doing is based on biblical prophecy, well, let's go into the prophecy and see what it states. And let's see how you match or don't match these prophecies. Let's see if what you're doing is in accordance with what the Most High states via his prophets. And so I'm thinking we're headed that way. There's no ways around it for the simple fact that what they're doing, their basis for what they're doing is that it is biblical. So therefore, in order for us to judge and see if what they're doing is in accordance to the quote unquote Torah, then we're going to have to go to it. And we're going to, right now, we're not headed there. The house of Israel, the men of Israel that are teaching and professing the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and encouraging the children of Israel to return to it. We are in these books. We understand what's going on, but the vast majority of the inhabitants of the earth and the other families of the earth does not. But the actions that take place within the land of Israel is going to affect every manner of nation and all the inhabitants of the earth. They will have no choice but to reference that book at some point. And I think that's where we're headed. So many things are going to be unfolding here. There are many people that have different religious views. When these things begin to take place, a lot of these quote unquote religions and their belief systems are going to be X'd out. It's going to be proven to them that no, whatever it is you believing, that's not what's happening. Many people are believing that the land of Israel is somewhere in the lower parts of Africa. Some people believe the land of Israel is in Utah and all these other things. When these events begin to unfold, it would make plain exactly who the Most High is, who his people are, and where his land is. So there's a lot of things to be hashed out with what is getting ready to transpire and what has already began to transpire within the land.
Yeah, but there's the Israelis, the people themselves, they really believe that they are the people. So they haven't got no second thought, but that's what they actually believe. They've been indoctrinated so much that they believe that they are. And they don't have a second sight even to read the book, because they've got their own book, what they read. What's that? I can't remember the name of their book, what they read. They don't read
Talmud?
the Book of Remembrance.
The Talmud?
Yeah, Talmud.
Talmud,
So
yeah,
they
Talmud.
read there.
But
They read their
look,
book and they thinking.
I think this, man. I don't think Noah. Look, we can just kind of look at. There is such a thing as migratory patterns of the movements of the families of the earth. We've got DNA now to where man can take his DNA and we can know exactly, where he's from, or to whom he is connected to genetically of the inhabitants of the earth. I mean, there's
one question
go
there.
ahead.
The DNA to do that in Israel is banned.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. But what I'm trying to state is this. There's no way. I mean, if we understand genetics, all right, and we understand migratory patterns, and we speak of natural selection and the ability to mutate, et cetera, right, to adjust, to adapt to environments. We know clearly the European is a foreigner to the land of Africa. Period. These people that's in that land are well aware of what their genetic stock is. And their genetic stock, without them even doing a quote unquote DNA test, they don't have to do that. They can go back 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations and know exactly where they're from. They're from Belarus, Ukraine, and all the steppes of the Caucasus. They know exactly where they are. These are white people. They know that. They know that they are not native to that land. That's like a European stating he's native to this land here in America. He's not. I mean, and there's records that show this. And if you don't want to do that, we can go into the migratory patterns of how you got here. And if you want to go to your own genetic studies, we can run your DNA and show you exactly where you came from. And this has always been his pattern. He goes, conquers all the lands that he has acquired is through robbery, theft, and murder. And once he takes that land, all of a sudden he becomes the people that the land actually belongs to. This is a historical fact of the European. He is the sword carrier. He is the killer
He's a name
that the Most
stealer.
High has sent throughout the earth. Huh?
He's a
This
name
is not
stealer.
hyperbole. This is not, huh?
I said,
Yeah, well, that part too.
yeah. Name
Yeah, the
stealer.
land.
What do you
So
think,
I'm
Dave?
going to come and steal your land, kill Dave, and all of a sudden I'm going to call myself by the same name that Dave and his family has called themselves, and the land actually truly now belongs to me. And so therefore, I rightfully now own this land, and I'm going to somehow fabricate information by which I can cause others to believe that this land is inherently mine. This is a constant theme that we have seen with the conquering, the pillaging, and the theft of lands of other peoples throughout the earth by the European. This is not hyperbole. I didn't make this up. This is a fact. And they have no compunctions in claiming that they have done these things. Now,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm gonna let you finish because I want to just touch on from a perspective being in this area, the mindset of an Israeli. I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay. So, I mean, here's what I need our people to understand. We all have missions, so to speak. The mission that was created for the children of Israel was to take the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts and teach it to the nations. That was our main job. That was the purpose for our creation. The other nations were never given this law. So therefore, law in the Most High means righteousness, means justice, means truth, equity, etc. All the things that we are begging our oppressors for in the many nations of our captivity. We have yet to understand that they are unable to give us equity, justice, righteousness, peace, or any of these things that we continue to ask them for. It was never given to them. Hence, their behavior is lawless, for they have never known the Most High's law. Why have they not known them? Because we were the only people that that law was given to, and we were supposed to teach them. And we have abandoned our post. So we're trying to ask for righteousness and justice out of unjust and unrighteous people. Now, I'm not saying that to say, hey, man, every single last white person on this planet is unjust and unrighteous. I can't say that for the simple fact that has not been my experience dealing with Europeans or dealing with quote unquote white people. I feel as though a vast majority of them, 95% or so, mean my people absolutely no good. That means they mean myself, my children, my foreparents before me, etc. They mean it's absolutely no good. Hence, we had slavery all over the earth, and we're still seeing inequities and injustice in the many lands where we dwell. So this is not to this is not to cover them all with a broad brush, but we do understand what their behaviors have been. Now, the spirit that's upon this man was placed on him by the Most High. I think this man is doing what he was designed to do. Period. We are not doing what we have been designed to do. If not, this man would not be at our throats. And this is why we have to return back onto that law and stay therein, because then the Most High will put a different spirit upon these people that will cause them to be at peace with us. This man is who he is because the Most High sent him to punish us, period. And so we're trying to ask this man, when we ask him for justice, we're asking him not to do his job. His job is not to give us justice. His job is to give us punishment. And I think once we begin to understand these things, that this man is simply here to execute judgment upon us, and we're to turn to the Most High by which to alleviate that, then our perspective and our actions will change. If nothing else, it should force us to turn to the law and anchor ourselves therein more so.
Wait, I'll just correct you a little bit there. Just sorry to jump in to read that. We won't ever get peace from this man, because he was designed. I mean, Esau was fighting with us in the womb. As we was being born, he was still fighting with us. Yeah, he will be fighting with us till the end, right? Until he's no more. As I think it's Obadiah. It says he will be as if he never was, right? He will fight with us till the very end. So no, we can't ever ask him for peace because there's no peace in him.
You don't know what it is.
Right, it doesn't know what it is. And also, the people we're talking about are a very small number of people, right? So 1751, Benjamin Franklin said that this bloodline that we're talking about only existed in Saxony in Germany, in England, and the newcomers in America. He said, they are all the white people in the world. Now, everyone else who've come along since are kind of like how the Zionists surround themselves with Jewish people so that they are protected. Yeah, before you get to the Zionists, the core, the ones that are doing all this stuff, before you get to them, you have to go through all these other people, right? You've got a core of these, I'll just say it, Nephilim, right? These Nephilim descendants, right, who are doing all the evil stuff, but there's a whole blanket of white people around them, and you can't get to them without going through all these white people first. I don't know if I'm making myself very clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely understand. I want to touch on real quick, like I mentioned to Elder Lee, the mindset of the mindset of an Idumean here in the land of Israel. I don't like to call them Israel. Like I said, I call them Idumeans, who they truly are. All right. So you mentioned about them coming from different places, Belarus, Ukraine, Ashkenaz, different places of Eastern, Western Europe. These people truly believe that they are the descendants of Israel coming from exile. They truly believe that they are the chosen. They truly believe that they fill the shoes and they fill the role of being the descendants of Israel. And I feel that the only truly way, like you mentioned, they are the sword carriers. They are the ones who led by the sword, like it talks about over there in Ezekiel chapter 35. And as the Most High mentions in Ezekiel chapter 35, the only way for them to be revealed and for them to finally come to the realization that they're not Israel, I don't feel it's by reading a book, it's by the sword. They led by the sword and they will fall by the sword. And when the Most High causes them to fall by the sword, and blood shall pursue them as they pursued others with blood, that's when will be the determining factor and when everybody will realize that they are not of the children of Israel. But deep down in their mind and their thoughts, they truly believe that there are people coming from exile, returning back into their land, and they feel that by them leading by the sword, they equivocate this as the children of Israel coming into the land during the days of Joshua. They actually believe that they have a Yah-given right to exterminate any and everybody who is in their way when it comes to taking hold of that land again. So this is their mindset, and I feel like there's only one way for them to understand and come to the full realization of their true nature and who they truly are, and that's by Yah judging them with the sword.
Great.
That's it.
Great. Another question I have for Lee, if you don't mind, is that we're seeing the massive fires over in in the West Coast there. What do you see that pertaining to the judgments and and ultimately prophecy? I'm thinking Deuteronomy 30. The curses turning back on the oppressors. But what do you think?
Well, the Most High did say that he will be sending these winds upon the heads of the wicked, right? So we're seeing people getting burnt out of their houses. I mean, most of them are trying to build their houses high on the hill, in the rocks, et cetera, et cetera. They're being burnt out. If they're not being burnt out, they're being flooded out. If not flooded out, the hurricanes are hitting them, his winds. I mean, we had one here not too long ago. the destruction from that thing can still be seen. In North Carolina, Georgia, it's still pretty bad. Uh, but there was some destruction done around here. That it has changed the rules as it pertains to housing, insurance, the ability to get insurance. It has raised the annual insurance for homeowners. It's just putting the squeeze on people, but they're destroying other people with bombs. But the Most High can have those same effects with his fires. When you look at these tornadoes, it looked like a bomb dropped in these cities, in these towns. Same thing with these fires. And as you turn your TV and you see the mothers and the children crying and screaming in Gaza because of that bomb, you're seeing the family standing there with absolutely nothing, screaming and crying with that fire burning behind them, or with the after effects of that tornado that wiped out the whole town. And they're crying and weeping just the same. But I don't think for 1 second that they are cognizant enough to think that they are participants in the destruction of many other nations, in the lives being lost of many other people. And they are the beneficiaries of that theft and robbery. I don't think that ever crosses their mind, because most of them, they're of the mindset that, well, as President Biden has said, this is some form of an exceptional nation. So therefore, everything that's being done here is good. And to heck with all the other nations. If we have to bomb them, that's fine. They're bad people. If we have to kill them, that's fine. That's bad people. They're bad people. They have not had the war come to their doorstep. And I'm thinking that the many fires that they have started in the many nations of the earth, those fires will eventually come to their doorstep one way or another. And I don't think that they are prepared, nor are they conditioned mentally for those types of hardships. And they're getting them. One aspect of that is the many soldiers that have been sent to these many lands to kill people, people that are of no direct threat to them or this nation. Many of these soldiers are the very men that they come back here, and the Most High has put a spirit on them to where they cannot rest. It is not a small thing for a man to go to a nation where that nation does not have the ability to harm his nation. No one in that nation has done any harm to him personally, but yet he can suit up from his nation, cross many seas and large land masses to go kill people that has done no harm to him and does not have the ability to harm him where he used to be. So he goes to these places and kill men, kill women, kill children, and return back onto his homeland and expect to lay down, close his eyes, and sleep at night. Many of these men, the Most High has put a spirit on them to where they cannot rest. And so therefore now, the many terrorists that we do have, unfortunately, happens to be some of the very servicemen that we have sent to these places to do all this killing. And when they come back here, they can't shut it off. And in essence, they turn upon the people that surround them. So we're seeing all of these things come home to roost in ways that they have not imagined.
Unlike
Also, I just want to ask you one quick question. You mentioned something about terrorists. What are your thoughts about and how do you think by Trump coming into office about how like the illegal immigrant crisis is going to take place? When you see places like Chicago, New York City, and and these are even pushing down south now, like in the places like Tennessee. Um, these are some violent people. I think it was about over 400,000 something criminal cases since they came in early 2021, 2022, 2023. So how did you see this playing out? Prophetic wise, I see this as, Isaiah chapter 13, when it talks about, wives being ravished and children and all that type of stuff, kind of beginning of a civil war going on.
And well, also the caterpillar was being sent to eat it from the inside
What are
out.
your thoughts about how this illegal crisis, immigrant crisis, perspective on?
All right, I'll give it to you this way. Now, the claim is that the illegal immigrants are violent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's go ahead and look back before the illegal immigrants got to this nation, right? Before the illegal immigrants got here, they were murdering and killing black people and taking their lands and redlining where they live, running train tracks where we live, running highways, uh, eminent domain, taking our lands, murdering our sons and daughters. So there's no way that the quote unquote immigrant, he doesn't have a track record, not even close to the violence of the very man that's trying to accuse the immigrant of being violent. And that's us just being real with it, is that the immigrant is coming here because there's been a squeeze that has been placed upon his nation and upon his government. It has been destabilized to where they can no longer feed their own families. So if a king were to go through the province and take away all the things necessary for sustenance and go back to his castle, what's going to happen is the very people that he seized all the things that's necessary for life and take it back to his castle so him and his homeboys can eat and live well, all the people of the province are going to show up at his castle. It's the same thing you have here in America. You're dealing with the same thing in the EU. I've been back to Germany. I've told you all before that all my teenage years I've lived in Germany. It's hard to find a German speaking German. You go downtown, there are Syrians there, there are people from North Africa there. It's just a conglomerate of a mixture of people there now. Why? Germany is the richest country in the EU. It's been part of the plunder of those nations and the destabilization of those nations. So when you take all the bread and take it back to your house, don't be surprised when everyone else shows up at your castle, hungry and upset. And this is what you have that's taking place in Germany and the EU. And this is what you have that's taking place here in America. People are coming because you have actually made it extremely difficult for them to sustain their families where they live. And one of these weapons would be their sanctions, the sanctions and the destabilization of their governments and their way of life. And this is why these people are coming to these shores. If they had a means by which to provide for their families where they live, they would actually stay there.
Well, I would slightly disagree as well, because I think there's a element of the Most High involved here. Because despite what
Didn't say that it wasn't.
right.
Didn't say that it wasn't, Brother Dave. Didn't say that it wasn't.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that the underlying theme is if you take a people and you destabilize their government, you sanction them by which they're not able to provide, they're not able to get the parts for their airplanes and their vehicles, they're not able to get the food for sustenance, not able to get the medications, et cetera, because you're actually imposing these sanctions on them. Don't be surprised that they come where these things are.
Right, but you kind of alluding to the idea that it's an organic thing. This is because this is happening, they're reacting to it. I'm saying no, because what you're not seeing in the mainstream, you're seeing a focus on overpopulation, right, in the mainstream. But what's really going on is underpopulation, right? The Western countries have been in a population free fall for generations now, okay, to the point where it's almost mathematically impossible for them to return. So to speak about this idea it's organic, well, it can't be organic, because exactly the same thing that's happening in America is happening in England as well, right? It's been engineered. It's been engineered, right? Because the populations there are diminished so much that they can't continue. Well, if it carries on like this, they can't continue, operating in the same way they did, because essentially, right, the number of white people are being hit harder than any other nation, right? The populations have crashed, and in fact, the only continent where the population isn't crashing is Africa. That's the youngest population in the world. All the other countries are turning grey essentially, because they're not replacing themselves. And typically, how they've managed to survive so far, and I'm looking at the UK especially, is that after the war, the population was so low that they had to call out to the West Indies and India for people to come over, because they thought, well, in those countries, they have lots of children. We'll bring them over, we'll mix with them, and have more children, and keep the caste system in place, and we'll sort of breed more white people, because essentially they're dying out. I mean, it's not a racist thing to say. It's literally, if you look, you'll find they are dying out. So their last ditch attempt to survive is to bring in a whole load of immigrants, right? Mix with them on one side and maintain the caste system on the other side, so that you end up, with this mixing, you breed a new batch of white people. It's the only way to get new blood. In fact, there is a video I've used several times of an MEP in the European Parliament basically laying it all out and saying the biggest issue we have is that our population is dying. We've got two choices. He says literally outright, we've got two choices: either face demographic collapse, or we import 100 million people in the next 10 years. So which one did they choose? And which one are they choosing? Importing millions of people. So it's not organic. That's what I'm trying to say.
Really quick, I actually think that y'all both are right. I think it's more than one right answer to this problem. I feel like y'all both are right. I understand Elder Lee's perspective. How these nations have been robbed, especially when you're talking about Central South America. They've been stripped and robbed of their resources. And they left with nothing. And now they're coming back, like you said, like those, coming back to collect from the king or whatever. That's the great daughter of Babylon. And also, you're right. I teach Japanese students English for a living, and in Japan is experiencing the same exact thing. They are in a severe decline in the population. Their population is, I mean, it's a crisis in Japan at the moment, and they just haven't come up with the wicked idea to go and plunder and go and call for other immigrants. But they're getting to that point where they want to have to depend on illegal immigrants in order for their society to survive. So. Yeah, I just feel that y'all both are right in this aspect. I just wanted to mention
Yeah,
it, touch on it.
it's like in Cuba now. Most of the young generation are going to America because of the embargoes. What the Americans put on Cuba for years. So all people are suffering. So all the people are getting to America. Then the Americans are welcoming them in 1 year to get the nationality for Cuban citizens. They're doing the same over here. They're squeezing the country.
Well,
Just to
this
say
is
about
and this is common behavior. Once again, Brother Daweed, you're right that we're both right. When we look at it from this generational perspective, we know good and well that the evil man, the Most High, said the end is his destruction. So it should be no surprise to anyone that those who have gone throughout the earth, uh, executing people, stealing their lands, and doing everything that's unrighteous, that the Most High would remove him and his children off the face of the earth. This is not a surprise to anyone. Now, with this, as it relates to immigration, they need somebody to do the work. So their numbers being reduced means nothing, because they still have all the resources, the power, and the weaponry. So it doesn't change the dynamic any. What they're doing, they're very selective and they're very careful within their immigration policy, both Britain and America. And Britain and America is not different. These are the same exact people. So when you look at it, it's okay, well, we need someone to do the work. And we may be running out population wise, but we're not running out of power. We're not running out of money, and we're not running out of guns. So we will adjust the immigration policy. That way, those who are coming from these areas will be much more likely to be on board with our perspective and our agenda. And so, therefore, you will find that many of these nations, as it pertains to the quota for the children of Israel, that is very diminished. When they start turning to these nations, India, in these Central, South, and Latin American nations, they have the same anti-Black sentiment as the European does. And so they don't have a problem bringing these many different peoples into America, into Spain, and all of these other places because these people are still on board with their whole agenda. And they're also using these migrants, these immigrants, as a buffer zone between Europeans and our people and the house of Israel. Hold one second, I've got to plug up and power up, but I'm listening.
Okay.
I've got to plug up my
You have to
computer
be careful.
and power up, but I'm listening to you.
Yeah, you have to be careful about this idea of anti-Black. It's not anti-Black. It's anti-us. It's anti, one nation, right? Because remember, all these nations are confederate against us. Okay, so there are so-called Black people who aren't us. They're actually considered white, yeah, even though they're darker than we are, right? But they're on their side. So to the system, they don't mind those people coming into their countries, swarming into their countries, as long as it's not us. Yeah, this one particular nation, right? People seem to lose sight of the fact that this is against us, as a very particular.
Hey, Elder,
nation.
you froze, Elder.
Oh, okay. That seems to happen a lot, but I was just saying it's against one particular nation of people. So these other nations that kind of look like us aren't getting the same treatment. They're allowed in. I think Ukraine was a good example, right? So from Ukraine, there are our people who live in the Ukraine, and they weren't allowed to exit Ukraine when the war started. Just like they were busing all these people out, they wouldn't allow our people out. Yeah, so it's always going to be, us that are on the sort of receiving end or at the bottom of the barrel, right? Even though there are people that look like us who are allowed to do things.
Brother Dave, I'm with you. Go ahead, Brother Ali.
Just really quickly, I look at it as them getting used. Just touching on what Elder Dave just said, I agree. I think they did just getting rid of these useless eaters, which is us. We in America sucking up all the resources, collecting all the government assistance checks and all this type of stuff. And I feel like they're just trying to move us out the way, and they can't put a European face on it to exterminate us like they really want to. So I feel like they just put darker faces on it. Just looking at what's going on in Chicago, that city is about to crumble. They're going through many different crises going even in New York and LA and these different cities. That's just my take on it. I feel like the main target is to exterminate us, and they just have to put a different face on it in order to do it. But that's just my perspective.
As it comes to this extermination thing, for us to be exterminated, as you would say, it would require some type of cohesion from those who look like us. Now, keep in mind, when I use that term anti-Black, anyone that's living in America understand clearly what that means. So you and I, we all know as men of the book, we understand exactly it's one particular nation that this stuff is being geared to, and that's the children of Israel. But when we look at quote unquote Black people as a whole, the European makes no distinction as far as who he hurts, who he harms, and who he robs. So the robbery and the murder and the slaughter, he has done that to all the nations. He doesn't care how black or brown you are. So when I say they have anti-black sentiments, if you go to Brazil, there are black people in Brazil. We know what a black person looks like. We know who the House of Israel is, and we understand clearly that not every black person is the House of Israel. We understand that as a general understanding for those of us who are in the book. However, no one, the European is not saying, you know what? This guy right here is of the Tutsi tribe, and this guy right here is of the House of Israel. So I'm going to leave the Tutsi guy alone, and I'm going to get this guy here, the House of Israel. No, they're all N-words, and we're all one big N-word, irregardless, to these people. And so therefore, you will find that the hardships, this is just me speaking, the hardships for black people as a whole worldwide, and their lands being stolen and their people being murdered, etc. You can find that. I mean, people can say, well, it's happened. The biggest pushback you will get from many people is that everybody's been enslaved. Everyone has had their lands taken, et cetera, et cetera. And my pushback to that, especially when you're talking to Europeans, I said, oh, well, I tell you what, show me where there's a European or a sect or group of Europeans that speak an African language, have African names, because African men have murdered and slaughtered them and subjugated them in this regard someplace in the earth. Show me where those group of Europeans or other people are, and then you have a case. And I don't think there's no such case that we can present or they can present to where they can say, yeah, we have done these things to them in this manner. So, I mean, we understand clearly that people are against us, but we don't have to go outside of the House of Israel to find this. You can find this right here in the midst of our leaders, like I've often stated on my channel, that when we see men who look like us sitting at our enemy's table, we must understand clearly that they're an enemy unto themselves, they're an enemy unto us, they're an enemy unto the Most High, because they won't poison the food or the agenda of our enemies. So most of us are being harmed because we have co-conspirators, people of our nation that will side with our enemies by which to do us harm.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you that yes, they today when it comes like boots on the ground type thing, yeah, the white people don't distinguish between any black people, but
it's a.
they
I know what you're gonna say.
they are Confederate. They were Confederate against us. So yeah, they joined with all these other nations, right? But the Edomites basically turned on all their allies. This is what Gaddafi was saying. This is what Saddam Hussein was saying. Gaddafi famously said, you make deals with these people. They're your friends. They'll tell you that you're friends, but then they'll turn around and stab you in the back. And he said famously, who knows who's next? It might be me, it might be you. And it turned out it was him next. So yes, at the beginning of all this, they were confederate of all these other nations, right? And to an extent, the leadership is still confederate with them, but yet they have turned on all their allies. And I think the book even says that and I can't remember what it says, but I'll summarize it, that all their allies have gone away, and that's it. They will disappear because the allies will turn on them, right? So yeah, I'd agree with you to an extent, but yeah, they're still letting these other nations in and treating them differently than they treat us.
It's
Elder Dave and Henry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No,
No,
what I was gonna say.
no, I was going to ask you a question. As we were talking about, just being boots on the ground and regional issues. I just wanted to ask something concerning the UK when it comes to this Russia conflict and how, of course, the the situation in Ukraine, how the Prime Minister of UK has sent storm shadows to be used on Russian soil. So I just want to know, I know that y'all both not in the UK now, but I'm pretty sure y'all have a lot of ties and still have a lot of conversations with people there. I just want to know what are the effects of the common people about your prime minister and your government bringing you into a direct conflict with Russia? What are people saying about that?
Well, the people haven't got much to do with it. The government is just going ahead and doing stuff. I think on the basis of I don't know if you remember, but just maybe a year or two ago, it was everyone was flying Ukrainian flags and saying Ukraine was the next big thing, right? And yeah, you got a lot of muggles who fell for the media hype and started flying Ukrainian flags and saying, yeah, we stand with Ukraine and all that. And I think on the basis of that kind of, I don't know, media hype, they've assumed that everybody, stands with Ukraine. And so they've gone ahead and done all this stuff. I think most people are like asking, why the hell are we involved? What has Russia done to us? This is a local conflict. Yeah, in essence, it's a border conflict. There are people who are Russians who live inside the borders of Ukraine, and Ukraine are treating them badly. So the Russians are, yeah, it's a separate border issue. So most of the people don't really care and aren't really sort of au fait with or happy with our government sending all this money to Ukraine for a war that we're not interested in. So no, it's what we're seeing all over the world is a massive waste of public money, and to breed an air of scarcity and debt and lack, and this how would I call it? This despair, right, to precede the final collapse of the monetary system, right? So yeah, but that's happening everywhere. We're just seeing, it being implemented differently. You got anything to add
Dave,
there?
as it pertains to the children of Israel, right? Now we have 13 families in the house of Israel. Now, when the Most High separated us and put a fire in the midst of us, it caused us to have problems, one man with his brother, as far as in the tribe and the whole family went into disarray. Now, if we're about to if we're about to be risen up out of the many nations where we have been scattered, it is fair to know that the Most High will do the same to those who have murdered, captured, and enslaved us, to where he will cause them to be in disarray in the midst of their own house. So, what I think we're seeing is that there's a healing within the house of Israel and a multiplication speed-wise of the destruction of the many nations that have, you could say, destroyed the house of Israel, but that is only partially true because that was their job. Their job was to enforce our punishment. And the Most High made it plain to us in the midst of these lands that we would have no ease. And the soles of our feet would have no rest. We would have this trembling heart and we'd be in fear in these nations. We will not have these things for those of us who turn back unto his law. For the Most High is the spirit of all living things. And he has placed a spirit on our enemies to make things extremely difficult for us, to give us no equity, no justice, no righteousness, no none of these things. We can't get it from them because we have been walking outside the confines of his law. But he has promised to us, if we were to turn back in the lands, in the many lands, plural, of our captivity, with our whole heart and our whole soul, that he would cause our enemies to be at peace with us. What does that mean? Though you're down here in the doldrums, though we're down here in the in the jail cells, the open air prisons of these nations. A man that turns back onto the law, him and his house, his enemies will be at peace with him, meaning he's not going to have it as hard as those who remain stiff necked and stubborn and continue to walk contrary to the law. Daniel would be an example of this in Babylon. So I would like to think that people would understand that yes, you will find some equity and some justice and some peace in these lands, granted to you by your own enemies, if you were to turn back to the Most High's law, because the Most High will put a different spirit upon that man to deal with you differently because you are in obedience to his law. Just wanted to get that out there.
Well, I kind of agree with you. And I don't know if you saw the that movie that the Obamas produced, Leave the World Behind.
No, I have not seen that and hadn't crossed my mind. I don't look at movies. The last movie I may have seen may have been Iron Man, and that came out 1,000 years ago. So
I suggest you watch that film, Leave the World Behind, right? Because you will spot all the references that show that film is all about us, and it's basically showing a world that's just about to go into, Armageddon. It started, America's being torn apart and whatever. And there's a theme going through it that you see these deer. Okay, as the world is falling apart, you see all these deer appear, and all the deer are doing is standing and watching. Okay, so you see all this mayhem going off, and these deer are standing all nice and calm and just watching. Right, and it's led by a big stag. Okay, now interestingly, what was the name that they would give a young black male slave? What they call a young black male slave?
I mean, they call him a buck.
A buck, yes. So literally, these deer symbolized us in these last days, as America is crumbling around them. All they had to do was just watch. They didn't have to worry, didn't have to show any fear. They just had to watch and observe as all this happened. So yeah, I agree with you. If you're following the law, statutes, and commandments, you, again, as I said many times, do not fear. Don't have to fear.
You're frozen, Brother Dave. There you go. You're back.
Yeah, do not fear. You don't ever have to fear this. Just stand back and observe.
It's imperative, and I've just done a lesson on that to remind the children of Israel and the stranger that is of a contrite spirit. That way the stranger doesn't think that he's somehow excluded from all of this, or they are excluded from this. Returning to that law, like I've said, it's getting difficult now, right? So, if you're a single mother with a couple of children, if you do not have some form of help, you're literally going to be homeless. Here in America, and I'm certain it's no different in England, that there's an increase in the homeless population. People are losing their homes. The ability to provide shelter has diminished for many. So now, counting on family members, good close friends, et cetera, it's going to be important as far as having a good support cast. Now, the best support cast you can have is the Most High Himself. But it's beginning to be dire straits in many of these places. I'm thinking it's going to be more so. And many of our people here, they're still teaching entrepreneurship, and I have no problems with that. And they're still teaching wealth management as well as building generational wealth, etc. I'm for all of these things. However, what happens when you hang your hat on these things and then the nation and its economy and everything that you have been building your life around becomes destroyed? Where do you go from there? And that's where now we're beginning to see, because no matter how much wealth we build here, we're still going to be the third class citizen within the nation. And it's to the point now to where we have to make this decision. Do I look for a comfortable seat at the table of the evil man, or do I simply wash my hands, walk away, and place my trust in the Most High and walk the path of righteousness? This is a very difficult decision for many of our people, because many of us have grown accustomed to wickedness, and that's all we have known, and refuse to even hear of anything that's righteous. Man, ain't nobody doing that. So this is what we've got going on. So right now, when all these hardships hit, and they would have to, because everyone has to make a decision on where their allegiance will lie. And I'm afraid that many of us that's grown accustomed to wickedness, that's all they've known, that's what they're accustomed to, they will not turn to righteousness. Just flat out won't.
Well, I see where you're going, and it's absolutely true that well, in my view, the end of the world has already happened. Yeah, the end of the world as we know it happened when COVID hit. Okay, the world changed to a point that all those systems that you mentioned, the financial system, the model that you go out, get a job, and that job will pay for your lifestyle and pay for a roof that's over your head and all that. That's gone. That's finished. Everyone's in the end of that system, trying to keep it going, but it's already ended. But again, the Most High made us an industrious people, right? And we've weathered the hardest hardship anybody's ever weathered in the history of mankind. Yeah. There are ways for us, using our creative ability, which we have in abundance, right, to get around those systems. Yeah, as long as you trust in the Most High, and which is essentially trusting in yourself, right? Because we are a model of the Most High, or an image of the Most High. Yeah. So trust in the Most High. Do not fear all this stuff, right? And a way will present itself to you. The Most High will present a way for you. I've seen this happen, in my life many times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? And as it happens, I'm working on a project right now to help people pay off their mortgages. So maybe I'll talk to you about it. Maybe you can do something similar over the States to help the people there, because again, creative intelligence that we have in abundance, right? There's ways of using their own system against them, right, while it's still standing, to get out of the bonds that they've placed on us.
Brother Dave, our enemies are clever. Now,
Yeah.
the rules change whenever we enter the game. That's just the way it's always been. So the minute you decide to create a manner by which to circumvent any of their systems, they immediately, that day, not next week, not next year, will implement changes to make your scheme of no effect. So, I mean, once they realize that you have realized what's going on, they change the game. They change the rules right then. They don't wait for it. So, and that's the power of our enemies. So, many of us, you have these brothers running around talking this we were kings nonsense, and how black man, you're a god, and all this other madness, right? Now, when you look around, we have to think right now. We have to look at what's going on in Ukraine. Look at the direct threats. The Russians are not playing around. It's amazing that the Russians are weaponized the way they are, and they're the only pretty much group of white people that's never murdered and slaughtered and enslaved our people. It's amazing that they would have the weapons that they have, and they would be in opposition to the very nations that have murdered and enslaved us. I find that to be interesting. But I say that to say this. Many of our men and our people are sitting there thinking that, black man is God and that they're gods and we're gods and all this other madness. Now, the next level of conflict between Iran and Israel, or between the Arab states and Israel, and when I say Israel, that includes America and its allies, Britain, etc., and the next level of the conflict between America and Ukraine and NATO can be on such a grand scale that it may involve nuclear weapons or weapons that have the capability to do the same destructive measures as a nuclear weapon. And there's not one black man, I'm going to say it just like that, that has the ability to stop it, nor is one black man involved in the process of it being done. So we have to really consider where we sit on the totem pole when it comes to power, affluence, and influence in this nation, in these nations as a whole. Here we have a group of men who have the ability to destroy this entire planet with their military might or destroy the place. And here you have all black people on the whole planet. We've got no say-so in the fact that this man can launch a bomb and make the air that we breathe poisonous. And so we really have to consider these things, that the Most High is all we've got. We've placed our trust in all these other idols that has not delivered us, that has not brought us peace, equity, nor justice in these many lands. And in the dire straits that we're in, understanding that the next level of military escalation can really cause some migrational changes in the earth. We really need to consider exactly where we will place our trust and exactly what we're going to do should these things come about. And I have no doubt that they will. But I'm thinking that's why there's men such as ourselves here and others that will instruct the people the way that is right and the way that they should go when they find themselves in total darkness and in total confusion, that we are the light bearers. We are bearing the law, letting the people in the dark know this is the path to dwell in. Go this way. And I'm thinking that role is a very, very important one.
I'm not saying that we are the Most High, but we are an image of the Most High, and the Most High works through us here, down here.
Oh, no doubt.
Moses, Moses had to, to command the waters to part. Joshua had to, command the sun and moon to stand still. Yeah. What I'm saying is, have no fear. We have the power, through the Most High. Okay.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Right. So, their weapons of mass destruction have no effect if you have no fear of them. Right? If we have no fear of them, they have no effect. It doesn't matter how powerful they say they are. And we also have to remember that Esau is a cunning hunter. Yeah. And part of the hunter's bag of tricks is deception. Yeah. I don't believe that there are any such things as nuclear weapons. Yeah, they've been a deception that has been used to terrify a generation of people, right? Absolutely terrified.
So hold tight, brother Dave. Now I have to step in real quick. I've got to interject. So you're trying to tell me that what has taken place in Nagasaki, Hiroshima, you're thinking that is somehow fake or false?
Yes, yes.
Well, there's no radiation there.
No radiation there.
Okay, so I'm assuming that what took place in Chernobyl also is false.
Yes. No, there was nobody actually died. There was apparently 14 people died because everybody else recovered. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying
and
is
all the wildlife returned.
The Orishnik weapon that Russia had just launched, that was just awesome in what it did, or implementation. So that's false too. Look, I've been in the United States Marine Corps infantry. And for those of you who have never been in the military, especially the United States military, let me be the one to tell you. And I'm just speaking from the level of an infantryman. I'm not dealing up here with the nuclear weapons and the physics and the lasers and all the other things that we don't know about. I'll tell you this. I don't believe that for 1 second that nuclear weapons don't exist. See, I'm not about to go crazy. What I'm going to tell you is this: the United States is a powerful nation when it comes to weaponry. That's what they do. That's what they know. War is in their heart. That goes for America and all the other European nations. This is just what they do. These men will sit on their beds and think of, okay, you created this thing right here to help grow products. I'm going to look at it and figure out a way how I can kill 50 million people with it. This is just what they do. So I personally don't believe for 1 second that a nuclear weapon is somehow some falsehood. That's something that they made up. Like I said, I've been in the United States Marine Corps infantry units.
I
I've seen what these people's weapons can do, and I do not doubt it for 1 second.
I
I
understand,
also
but
believe,
right.
I'm sorry, real quickly, you know, I believe that these are the weapons of Yah's indignation that he's going to
Oh, no
use
doubt.
to turn on their heads, man. I think that it's not man who comes up with this wisdom, who has the knowledge to build these things, is Yah. I think that Yah is orchestrating these things to use it for his needs and for his desires. Um, I see this is how he's going to use to destroy the United States of America. I truly
Oh,
do.
well,
I feel that those are the weapons of his indignation he's going to use. And you mentioned the Orishnik, which doesn't even have to have nuclear warheads, and he cause a lot of damage, you know. But yeah, that's just my take on it. That's just my perspective.
With wicked
look, I think the
people.
most
Right, go ahead.
I think the Most High, if he once he puts his mind to destroy the nations, he can do it so many different ways: by fire, by wind, by water.
But
You
but he
know,
specifically mentioned the arrows, that all the arrows will be an array against the nation. Now, when you think of an arrow and you look at the design thereof, it is that of a missile. Uh, just much more. A missile is a modern day arrow with much more destructive force and power. So therefore, yes, indeed, it is the the most part of the Most High's arsenal, if you will, of his armory. And I think these nuclear weapons are going to be part of that destruction, that fire that's going to be brought on these nations. But there's no one that's going to sit here and tell me, no, but Brother Dave may believe that. I I believe different. As far as these people don't have nuclear weapons, man, their physicists are coming up with things that will blow our minds as far as things that's specifically designed to kill us and to kill people in vast numbers that we would sit here and we couldn't fathom that because our whole makeup doesn't work that way. Uh, and I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I said, our people are very different. You're not going to find a group of our people who are just going to, let's say, a Korean child or a white child or an Indian child or any other child venture into the midst of us. We would care for that child and return it to whomever his parents are, etc. Other peoples and other families of the earth, if one of us were to venture into their midst, they don't have a problem killing our 9-year-old and our 8-year-old. We just don't think that way. Uh, we don't function that way. Are there a few of us that would kill an 8-year-old? Oh, yeah, we got a couple of killers in the midst of us, too. But for the most part, we do not go around as a collective, as a people, harming children. It's not something that we do. But there are other groups of people upon the earth that would not have a problem hanging our 8-year-old, will show no compunctions towards such behavior. And so when we speak of something as destructive as a nuclear weapon, if you sit down and tell a man of Israel, hey man, this weapon right here, if you hit this button, it's going to wipe out all of Central, South, and Latin America. You will have 250 or 3 billion people killed. There's some groups of people that will be like, okay, so what? Hit the button. But for the most part, our people are not built to where we will do something like that. It's unconscionable for us. So if Brother Dave don't believe in a weapon that's that destructive, I get it, because our makeup doesn't work that way mentally
But their wake
till
up
you
does.
see exactly what these people are willing to do.
Their makeup does, though. And if they had that
Oh, it
capability,
does.
they would have
Yeah,
used it
yeah,
by
yeah.
now. They would have used it several times over by now. Yeah. But what's
Well, they understand its destructive power.
I know, but as I said, they've already used it. If you go by their story, they've already used it sort of quite casually twice in Japan, right? Right, even though the war was pretty much over then anyway.
Over,
Yeah. So they would have used it several times over in the intervening 50 or 60 years. Yeah. If they wanted to get rid of all of us in Africa, Africa would be a nuclear wasteland by now. Yeah. Or more than that, because they've created these things that supposedly called neutron bombs, which will kill people but leave the infrastructure and everything else intact. Yeah. No, they would use that plenty of times over and accomplish their goals that way. No, it doesn't exist, right? And they've just used it because you can defeat an enemy without fighting that way. You can say, look, don't fight us because we've got this bomb. We could wipe out your whole nation, right? And just press of a button. So don't fight us. Do as we say, right? That's deception. You know, the Esau's a master of deception. And anyway, I think we've been
Yeah,
going
well,
for 2 hours, so I think it's time we wrap it up. So if anyone's got any closing thoughts about where we are today, right? You know, if you'd like to go through, I mean, 2 hours. So anybody want to start?
Yeah,
Today,
sure, absolutely. Like I said, I think that these are times we living in that we all need to really focus and zero in on our inner selves. Yeah, we have the law, which is the foundation of everything. But we also have to focus on our mental state at this moment. We are cursed people coming out of dire situations. Then we should take the time to focus on ourselves mentally as well. And yeah, I think, like I said, just from my end, there's a lot of changes going on in this region. I think that we should pay close attention to. I know that the Western media is suppressing a lot of things that's going on here. But if you dig deep enough, you'll find information, true, authentic information about what the Most High is doing in this region. And I think that without a doubt, we know what time it is as the children of Israel, being as connected to the Most High as we are. We see Yah by the moves and the events that he's doing on this earth. That's how we know how much time we got left. And just, like I said, I'm not saying that I have a clear eye view more than anyone else. That's not what I'm saying. I can only give you the perspective from my lens. We don't got a lot of time to be playing these games as a people. The Most High is moving and he's not waiting for anyone. Actually, he's been more than merciful when you look at the amount of time that he's given us to get ourselves right. Um, so this is just for the viewing audience out there. Turn to that law, commit to it, submit to it with all your heart and soul. Work on your mental state as well. All right, focus on, any past traumas that you have gone through, dig deep into it, to heal yourself, and start preparing for yourself what's to come because there's a shift in energy, there's a shift in energy. Righteousness is beginning to prevail, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it's happening. So just yeah, we don't have a lot of time left. So just get deep into the book, read, study, pray, and keep the law. Times are dire in these days and times. So that's all I want to close
yeah,
out with that.
I think they realize that they're losing the battle. That's why they're trying to push their agenda to 2030. That's why they're doing all these fires all over the world, trying to implement their like 15-minute cities. But they feel like they're losing. I don't know.
Thank you. Well,
Hello.
brother Lee, you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I will say this to the people that are listening, that have placed their trust in the Most High. Certainly they can attest to Him delivering them in whatever particular situation and hardship that they may have found themselves in. I would say continue to place your trust in the Most High, uh, and don't let your faith be shaken in any way. I think that the next few military conflicts, whether it be in Ukraine, Russia versus NATO, or it take place within these Arab states, I think that whatever takes place next, and this ceasefire, I don't think is going to hold. Is going to be like the other ceasefires in times past. I think now that these Israelis are seeking a ceasefire because their weakness has been discovered. And
Yes.
so therefore now they're like, oh, well, I tell you what, all of this impregnable defense that we have with this Iron Dome and whatever else we've got, our enemies have proven to us, and they are well aware that this is not so. So what we will do, we will form a peace agreement with them, and the Arab nations know good and well they cannot trust these people. So therefore, what's going to happen? This is my feeling is that it won't hold, and if anything, this truce is going to be used as a decoy by which to attack them, to do what the Israelis have always done. They have always dealt treacherously with the Arabs. And now that they find themselves unable to defend themselves from these weaponry, now they're seeking a truce. Now they're seeking peace when they have never sought peace and have never granted any truce. And now that they seek to deal righteously with these Arabs, the Arabs will deal unrighteously with them and probably attack them. Uh, and then it gets ugly and changes everything within the earth. So whatever is going to transpire next is going to be drastic, it's going to be quick, it's going to be shocking. Not only that, it's going to make the people, the inhabitants of the earth, consider everything that they have ever heard about that book and about the children of Israel, and it's going to make them turn to it, if for nothing else, but to get a better understanding of exactly what is transpiring, why it has transpired, and what's up next. That way they know exactly which way to go. And that's important, which means if this is the next phase of what I'm seeing, oh, there's a whole lot of people that's getting ready to die, and we need to be prepared for that.
Yes, indeed. Read Obadiah chapter. The only one book Obadiah that explain everything the elder Lee just said to the T.
Yeah, because a lot of people are waking up now, seeing what's really going on, and a lot of people are turning to the Most High, and they realize that. That's why they're pushing forward for their agenda, what they're trying to do, but they will fail.
Let me add this also. Here in America, right? And America is headquarters for our enemies, meaning it's the epicenter. All the other nations follow America's lead. There was a time when Spain was the epicenter. There was a time when Britain was, when Rome was, et cetera, et cetera. I think now here in America, the Israelites in America are beginning to actually stand firm and hold firm to other people in other nations, giving them their due respect. They're no longer allowing them to just step on them anymore. They're standing up, and I'm seeing that is going to reverberate throughout the many nations where we dwell. And I think it's about high time we stood up to all of these other nations that have disrespected us and that has benefited from us. For we are a group of people that's always welcoming to other people. Like I've said before, our mindset doesn't work in the manner that our enemies does. I mean, we may invite some people into our home to bring them out of the cold, to feed them, and to clothe them. But it's not within our minds that the very man that I'm feeding, clothing, and I've brought out into the cold, while he's putting on the coat, while he's eating my food and while he's drinking the water that I've given him, he's actually looking around and planning how he can kill me and take possession of that which I have. Our minds don't work that way. And so now we've got to start thinking like this and understanding that for the children of Israel, I think we fail to believe that these people really are our enemies. And the minute we start understanding that we have a different makeup based on how we think, then it makes it a little harder for others to do harm to us because now we start thinking someone like them, understanding that, look, this man thinks this way, so I need to be cautious when dealing with him, which makes it a whole lot harder for a snake to bite you if you're always cognizant of the fact that he has venom and he can possibly kill me, whether he's venomous or not. And we're going to have to start dealing with our enemies that way and not letting them into our spaces because no one else lets us into their spaces like that. But once again, we are a open heart people. Yeah, we've got some animals in the midst of us. We all know this. But we are a people that's very loving, very giving, very forgiving, as you know. And we don't mind embracing other people and bringing them into our circles. And we have done this to our own detriment. And now we have to start being careful and start protecting ourselves and that which we have owned, created, et cetera, and stop letting others into our spaces because when they come in there, their intentions that we have seen in times past and present has not been good.
So my view is that we're in the season, we're in this time, we are in the end days. This is it. Yeah, this is the time that all these cultures, all the ancient cultures have been pointing to and saying, man, this is going to be the time where it's all gonna go off. We're right there, okay. But just as the Most High said multiple times, do not fear. Yeah, if you turn to the Most High and trust in Him, you don't need to fear. As I mentioned earlier, the deer in Leave the World Behind. Your job is just to turn back to the Most High, keep His laws, statutes, and commandments, right, and just observe. Yeah, you'll be told when it's time to leave. I truly believe that.
True.
You don't have to worry about that. You'll know when it's time to leave. Okay. We're seeing the world change in our favor. Anyway, it's moving. It's like when, in my view, August 2019 hit. Right. That was when the command went out to turn the oil tanker hard to port. Right? So as soon as that wheel went all the way around to port, right, nothing happened. But over the next few years, what happened was that the oil tanker started to change direction very slowly. And it'll get to the point where nothing on earth is going to stop that tanker turning. Yeah. But at the moment, we're just seeing it moving very slowly. Okay. We're in a chess game. We're seeing all these things going on in the in the world around us, but they're just moves on the chessboard. Yeah, the end of the game has already been written. It's already been written.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that needs to be decided is what side of the fence you're going to end up on. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for today. I think we've been going for over nearly 2 hours. So just leaves us to say goodbye to everyone. Catch up with you later.
Till next
All
time.
right, till next time. Thank you all for having me. Have a great day and a blessed week. God bless. Peace.
Until next time, peace and Yah bless. And like Brother Dave has said, we are to be a witness and a witness sees. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to sit back, we're going to see, but meanwhile, while we're watching, we need to keep our trust in the Most High that we may be shielded. We've got to step into that sanctuary. That's where our protections is, and that's where it lies. But we are to witness, so that's exactly what we're doing and we'll continue to do. Peace and Yah bless everyone.
God bless. Peace.
Take care, everyone.
We continue.
Okay.
Next time.
By the way, where's brother? Where's Delvin at?